In ancient times, before man's known existence, the sun gods, known as the Anunnaki, found an element on our Earth that they needed. That element was gold. So they created a hybrid race of humans that would work as slaves to mine the gold for them. Is it possible that the hybridization of the human race continues today, and for what reason? Join us as SUDS investigator Lindsay Carroll sits down and one-on-one interviews one such hybrid.
So I am here with Miss Annie, and she has had some experiences in her lifetime, and we just want to hear about them.
Where would you like me to start?
Well,
At the beginning?
at the beginning would be good.
Well, my first known experience to which I've been allowed to be aware of turned out to be at 3 years old when I found myself on the ship. Now, I didn't know anything about this at 3 years old, quite honestly. I didn't realize it until I was older when they started opening me up, allowing me to be opened up, they being the beings. And what I remembered, what they were allowing me to see, and I wasn't hurt or anything, and I wasn't even scared. I just saw myself sitting in a large area, which when I got older and I remember seeing some of the area around me, was more what we would call a cockpit or a control room, because I saw myself sitting in a chair, and but that's all I saw at that point was the area around me, and then after I was brought back, which apparently must have been not long, nothing else really came to me until I reached the age of 19.
Okay.
And I guess they felt because I had already taken it upon myself to get more interested, they gave me a level of interest in something I never studied. And in my early teens, just before, like 12 years old or so, 13, I became fascinated with the galaxies, space. Nothing was going on in our country at that time, so I had no reason to gravitate to it, but I kept being told to look up. I'd look up, and I started seeing ships. Now, they weren't necessarily right above my head, but they were within a distance where they had me look, and if I looked to my left and they said, no, turn to the right, that type of thing.
And you could see them.
I could see them.
Horizon.
Right, and they would be right there, or then they would move to show me that they were
there,
moving around and everything. And that was pretty much how it always was for a very long time, a good part of my life. And it was really, no matter where we were living at the time. I grew up in the East Coast, in New England. So certainly this was not a subject as a 5 or 6 year old that I could ever say to a friend of mine. And back in those days, it still happens, but as a 5 or 6 years old, I had a very close friend, and we were neighbors, and she would be saying something to me, and I'd say, well, no, that's not right. And it got to the point where she said, well, how do you always know everything? Well, I was hearing it downloaded to me. It's not that I had that natural ability at that time. But I couldn't tell her because I didn't even understand it myself.
You just knew that that's what you knew.
And then she would say something else. She says, well, you're always knowing everything, and I don't understand. And I said, I don't have an answer for you. Because it just comes to my head.
Especially when you're that age, because you can't look it up. You haven't studied it. You just know.
Never knew a thing about space, intergalactic travel, the other planets at that point,
Yeah.
whatever. I may have known that we were part of a solar system, but
Yeah.
that didn't mean a lot to me at that point.
Yeah.
Anyway, so things evolved, not a lot within that time frame. I would say until I was 11 or 12, things were somewhat static or somewhat quiet, but things would continue to happen. I became accustomed to hearing things in my head. I thought probably I was going crazy, but I was kind of advised to pay attention because they were educating me.
Yeah.
And periodically, I would find myself on the ship for the purpose of more education. And what they were working with me about had to do about life elsewhere. We were not the only planet with life.
Yeah.
This is what space is like and
Yeah.
whatever. I'm going to jump ahead a number of years because in my, and then I can go back again, as long as I'm talking about being on the ship like that. One of my trips to the ship, which has remained the most incredible visual experience I probably will ever have in my life. Again, I was in the control area. They knew I liked to fly, so that's why they kept bringing me up maybe or whatever. And they said, would you like to fly the ship? And I said, I'm going to put this down.
Yeah.
And I said, I would love to. Now, they
course,
weren't going to let me be too aggressive about this. And I got so excited, I put my hands out in front of me, and I was going up to the control panels, which are literally like this.
Yeah.
And they stopped me dead in my tracks. They said, stop. Put your hands behind your back. And I said, okay, why?
Yeah.
Well, all the controls are energy controlled. I don't have to touch them.
anything.
And they said, you've got a very strong energy field. That's when I first learned about that.
Yeah.
And we can't have you putting your hands over all the controls because you don't know what the hell you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. You can't just go pushing
They said,
stuff.
we don't want to crash the ship.
Yeah.
Now, we're up, I'm a little higher up because they said, you want us to look at your planet?
Yeah.
And I said, I would love to. And this is the visual. And, of course, the what we call counters, I don't care what they call them, came out this way. So I kind of had to put my hands on to step up to see out the windows. And I saw the top half of Earth, the bottom, the mid half up to the top half of Earth. And I sat there mesmerized. Absolutely mesmerized. I have never, in fact, it brings tears to my eyes, forgive me.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very emotional experience. And that was when I was older, which is why I know I was still going up there for various purposes. But then I don't necessarily recall all the times from that time at 3 years old, seeing myself on the ship, to when I was an adult. Positive I'd been up and down more because the education they gave me.
Yeah.
And at 3 years old, to digress back to 3 years old to help fill in some other spots there, I was actually six years old, not to 3, and on this next thing. And my mother needed to come to Arizona for her health. She had a heart problem. My brother and I were put into a private school in Tucson.
Okay.
During one of my nap times, I was the youngest one in the school, so they required me, in order to be at the school, to take a nap every day. During one of my nap days, I woke up, and I was alone in the bunkhouse. I woke up, and there were 3 beings at the foot of my bed. Now, between the ages of 3 and 6, I realized subconsciously there was something about me, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
You know, it hadn't really come to fruition in my thinking, my mind, and nor had they made me aware to that degree. So I looked at them and I started to cry. And they said, don't cry, we're not here to hurt you. I said, I'm not crying out of fear, whatever I expressed as a 6-year-old. I said, I am so thrilled. I'm crying out of happiness. I knew you were a part of me, but I didn't know how.
Yeah.
And I am so excited. I'm crying out of excitement and happiness, because now I know I wasn't dreaming.
Yeah, that's the validation.
The validation, they said, we have been with you your entire life. In other words, they had been with me since I was in the womb. My mother was apparently abducted when she was pregnant with me. Never knew a thing that was going on. Never discussed. I never know if my father knew or not. I have no idea, because nothing was ever discussed with me by my parents. Now, whether they were consciously aware of it or not, I can't give you an answer.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's when I started putting the pieces of the puzzle together.
Mm-hmm.
So at 6 years old, I find they've been with me my entire life, and they apparently abducted my mother, and they made modifications to me. So here I am at 6, 7 years old now, and a lot of things I have an ability to do, have no idea how. So when my friend is saying, well, how do you know this? Whatever it is, I couldn't give her an answer, and I felt like a total idiot.
Yeah.
So we didn't really talk about it a lot, because what do kids talk about at that age? It's certainly not about the solar system. Yeah. So I kept it to myself for years.
Yeah.
And then, jumping ahead, and I may have to digress back and forth, I met my husband. Back in '68, and one of the things that attracted me to him was his work with the space program.
Nice.
And did work for NASA. So I said, oh boy, someone with whom I can converse.
Exactly. Someone who knows as much as I do.
Well, in a different capacity.
Yes.
So obviously that relationship worked out quite well, because I was able to communicate with someone for the first time in my life. And I didn't say a lot of things about myself. Some of them I waited to say, because we only dated 6 months before we were married.
Yeah.
And then after we were married, we're now in our 52nd year. Our anniversary is in December, so this gives you that time frame, how long I've been talking to him about it.
Yeah.
And so we started going to MUFON together. We moved to California from the East Coast. Didn't get involved with MUFON there, but when we were there about 20 years. And then we moved to Arizona, because I'd gone to private school here, so my goal was to get back to Arizona.
To come back, yeah.
So we started in Tucson, and I didn't really get too involved. I still had experiences, but I wasn't involved with MUFON at that time. So when we moved to Scottsdale, that's when we started getting involved with MUFON, and then we came out here. Now, I did not see the Phoenix Lights. Ironically, I heard about it and didn't see it.
Yeah.
Now, we were in Tucson at the time, and it started in Tucson.
Yeah.
But I just, don't ask me why,
Yeah.
I just didn't even know about it until after the fact.
Yeah. Now, can you explain what MUFON is for people who might not know?
Sure. MUFON is the Mutual UFO Network.
Okay.
And you don't have to be someone like myself, which is a major experiencer plus, but it's anyone that has an interest in learning more about ETs, who they are they here, are they not here, what are they involved with us about, anything ET related and beyond. MUFON became an organization that allowed people to come together and meet others of similar thoughts and interests. And it evolved from there.
Yeah.
And they now have a conference once a year.
Nice.
And last year, when it was in Dallas, I was asked to be on a panel and speak, which I did, and enjoyed that a lot. And then I got a call. I don't remember who the station is at the moment, but they have a radio program involved with interactions and experiencers and what's going on.
Yeah.
And that was a recorded program, not filmed. And that was done at night, and it started somewhere around 10, my time.
Yeah.
They called about 9:30, got involved about 10.
Yeah.
As it turned out, we didn't get off the phone until 1:30.
Oh,
no. It was supposed to be a 1 hour conversation.
We've had those kinds of shows too.
So it was very interesting, though, and started mentioning more about the evolution of my life and how it came to where it is today.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, at MUFON, the local MUFON in Phoenix, all they know about me is I'm an experiencer. So I consider this year my coming out year.
Yeah.
Now, how much it happens, and when I do the interviews, I don't even use my last name. It's either that or just Annie G, just so you know. I'm not looking to have any problems coming back at me. I don't mind people knowing. If they see me, those who know me will know.
Yeah.
And even people, we were at a private country club, and maybe one person there knows anything, but that's it. One couple know anything. No one else does, and I ask them not to.
Yeah.
Because friendships are important.
Yeah.
They're hard to make sometimes.
Yeah, and you never know how people are going to react.
I don't want to take, I don't want to upset anybody, and I'm not looking to lose friends.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to answer any questions anybody may have. Even our daughters, they came to dinner one night because we felt it was time to let them know more about me, because they knew I was involved in MUFON, but they didn't know to what degree.
Yeah.
And what I do is not completely with MUFON anymore.
Yeah.
I've gone out on my own, because now people refer people to me for help. But at the same time, we had them out for dinner. We have 2 daughters. They know I am involved, but one doesn't really believe a lot of it, and the other one, our older daughter, I feel, well, through signs, has some of me in her. And some of the things we spoke to her about, I could so easily see in her eyes the concern.
Yeah.
She said, "Oh my Lord." I could almost read her mind.
Yeah.
I saw the ticker tape. "Oh my word, I can do that." Or, "Oh my word, I had that experience."
Yep, get those signs, get that.
Our other daughter, who's only 2 years younger, said, "I don't believe a word of this."
Yeah.
And I said, "That's your prerogative." I said, "This is who and what I am. I'm not going to force it upon you."
Yeah.
But we felt it was time you knew.
Absolutely.
Because they're grown up with children of their own.
Absolutely.
So that's how we left it with them. But now at least I can be a little more open with them. So I told them about today. But, I think our other daughter, our younger daughter, may be becoming accustomed to it. As a matter of fact, she's the one, I think, that gave the information to you or whomever got in touch with you.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
And because I asked her, I said, "Well, how did they reach me?"
Find
I guess
you.
they met you at a social event.
Yes, I think they
and
met us.
she's the one that said, "You got to talk to my mom."
I think so.
So is our daughter. So
she's
the
brown
one,
curly hair?
Yes, very curly. If she's wearing it,
I
very
remember
curly.
her. Yes.
Very curly.
Yes, it's very curly.
Ultimately curly.
Yes, jealous of her curls.
Yes. So anyway, yes, she's the one that referred you. So I guess you met her at another event.
Yes.
I don't know what event.
We were just, I think she was out to dinner with her husband.
Okay.
And we were doing a live show there and talking about anything paranormal as to spirits and everything.
Yeah.
And she came up after and was like, "You have to talk to my mom."
Okay.
So
she may associate everything about me as paranormal.
Yeah.
But I do have to be very clear.
Yeah.
This is not paranormal. I work with people that have paranormal experiences, and it's easy for me to distinguish the difference.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to make that clear to everybody that it has never been a paranormal experience for me. My brother doesn't even know a thing about me. He's 4 years older. He's still in the Boston area. I've never even attempted to say anything to him. It's not necessary.
yeah.
So what happened was so I was going to my primary care a number of years ago. And she said to me one day, because we always had good open conversations, but never about this.
Yeah. No.
She said, "Hey, have you ever had your DNA done?" And I said, "No." She said, "For fun, would you like to have it done?"
Sure, why
I
not?
said, sure. Well, it turned out the reason she was asking me, which I didn't find out until after the fact, because she didn't want to scare me, she did do some general CBC work and added one or two other things. It wasn't DNA.
Yeah.
But something came back with an anomaly. And it was of a concern. And so she figured by doing a DNA, without saying too much to me at that time, maybe something will come out.
Yeah, you don't want to scare anybody, so I get that.
But I have a little bit of medical background
Yeah.
because my work experience, although I wasn't a researcher in medicine, I worked at Stanford in School of Medicine.
Okay.
So I had exposure to a lot of things,
that's
and
good.
someone asks a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So I learned a
Yeah.
lot too. So in any event, so she never said anything to me, but I said, sure, that'll be fun, and I'll learn more about my background.
Yeah.
My parents never spoke to me about my background. The most I knew was my mother was from Latvia, and never anything more said about that.
Yeah.
So did the DNA. So she called me back when the test came in and she said, we have an issue. And I said, okay, what's the issue?
Yeah.
They can't read your DNA. And I said, oh, no, I already knew about me, but I would never correlate something automatically. I say, oh, is there a concern? I said, what's your concern? She said, we're concerned that there may be some undiagnosed cancer in your blood.
Yeah.
I said, oh, then I got concerned.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, what direction do we go in?
Yeah.
She said, I'm sending you to St. Joseph Oncology. We're going to let them take you from here and see what they can find out. So I went to St. Joseph's. Of course, it's a national hospital. They're all over the country. I went to the one in Phoenix. And they said, okay, we're going to do a DNA. And they did a DNA, and they said, well, we think that the blood work was contaminated in the lab. We need you to come back in, take it again. Went in, took them again. This was a month later.
This is now your third time.
Well, second time
Okay.
it was St. Joseph.
Okay.
My doctor did the first
Yeah.
one, but so we're counting now just from St. Joseph's.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was done another time, and it came back, same thing, and they're really getting concerned now.
Yeah.
So they said, we need to have you come back in again, and we're going to do some more testing,
Yeah.
more larger scale,
Yeah.
I guess is what they didn't use any particular word. They said, we just need to do some more. We're trying to figure out what's going on with you.
Because for them, they're thinking it's a lab thing or they don't know.
Yeah, and I'm still not saying anything. I never said a thing to even
Nope.
my doctor now. So in any event, this went on, to moving forward, 6 different times. In the 6th month, they had me come back, again, and they said, we don't know what's going on with your blood work. We know it's not contaminated. We've made sure the lab is making sure of that. And we still can't read your DNA. So I said, that's okay, don't worry about it. He said, what do you mean, don't worry about it? I said, you can't read it. So I have nothing to worry about at the moment.
Guess we're okay.
Said, they, well, how do you feel? I said, I feel great.
Yeah.
And I'm an athlete.
Yeah, I feel fine.
And I told him, I said, I'm still very active. I was a competitive tennis player. I said, I'm still very active, and I'm not having any issues. He said, good. If anything does come about,
I'll let
call
you know.
us back and we'll open up your file.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there. I said, fine. So I never called him back.
I wouldn't either.
And all I did was call them for a copy of my file, which they never sent me. And I asked them 3 times. I'd like a copy of my files. Well, the only thing I could figure out was it went to the government.
Probably.
Now, what the government has done with it, I don't know, because I don't know. I have a helicopter flying over the house every morning and every late afternoon.
Yeah.
But, I'm not trying to feel that they're watching me because they probably have cameras on me that go through the roof. For all
exactly.
So I just have to make sure I'm dressed all the time.
Exactly. If they're going to watch you, they'll find a way.
I'm sure it's not that because this has been a routine for a long time. And the airport's over there, and they're probably flying to the other, whatever. I'm not trying to be paranoid about it because I don't think about it. I just don't think about it. So, but what I didn't like is that they would not send me my file after asking them at least 3 times, if not more.
I get once, sure, it happened, somebody forgot. Okay.
but-
Second time.
And the last time I
know.
called them about it, I asked them to please find my file. I said, I've asked for my file multiple times now, and this is only a year ago that I asked again. And they said, well, I don't think we can release them to you. And I said, they're my files.
Yeah.
Do
You
I
have to
need
go in and
get
sign
do
a
I need
paper,
to
but
get do I need to get an attorney?
yeah.
So you do what you can, but they're not going to release them to you. So, you know, that I didn't like.
Yeah.
And why do they feel necessary to keep it without letting me know? There's nothing in there I don't already know.
Exactly.
I just need the validation.
I just
and
want to see
verification.
it.
Yeah. So that's where we're at.
That's
on
interesting.
That. And so about a year ago after that happened, I've never been involved with Ancestry.com,
Yeah.
but with what they were advertising and a special price, you know, I said, what the hey?
Yeah.
You know, so it's $50, $60, $90,
Yeah.
whatever it is. If it gives me any information,
Might give you a little bit.
if. So I did a full panel for them, whatever they do, and a DNA. And 3 weeks later, I hadn't heard anything, so I called them. And I said, I'm waiting for my results.
Yeah.
You say we get it back in about 2 weeks. I'm now 3. What's the story? So they said, well, let us look into it. Okay. So I didn't hear back from them either, so I called another week later. And I said, I introduced myself again.
Yeah.
I said, I'd like to get a copy of my files
Yeah.
just for my own personal information. Nothing's going to be done with it. It's for me.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we can't read your DNA. They finally sent me a report.
Oh, good. Okay.
I can't find it now on my iPhone.
Yeah.
I put it in a file which has apparently been erased, not by me, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't say by whom at all. I've changed phones probably twice since then, so who knows. But I know that I saved it somewhere.
Yeah.
And the wording in the report, because I do recall this, said 30% of my DNA is unreadable. And we've done everything we can.
That's
so
probably
at
why it
least
took
I've got
so
a
long.
percentage. It's not the entire DNA.
Yeah.
They know my
Most of
background
you.
is Latvian, you know, from my mother's side and things like that. But other than that, they had very little information.
Really?
And they had some on my father,
Okay.
nothing on my mother.
Mm.
So the whole issue comes from my mother.
So they took.
And then it was my beings family, and I have a beings family. That told me because I kept asking questions.
Yeah.
And eventually they finally realized that I'm not asking to be hurtful about anything.
Yeah.
That I'm here to learn from them.
Yes.
And I'm relying on them to educate me, to continue to educate me, which they still do, but not as frequently. Because I think they've taught me everything, but now things still happen because of the way I directed my life. So that's how I found out. I said, you have to let me know where that 30% of DNA can't be read came from. So that's when I found out that my mother had been taken when I was in the womb. And modifications were made at that time. So what happens, and it turns out, is they said, you are a hybrid. And I said, great. That's
now
great
it makes
for me.
now it answers
makes
all my
sense.
questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it answers all my questions.
Instead of me
because
sitting here
just
thinking,
being an experiencer
Yeah.
wasn't answering them, because I know what being an experiencer is
Yeah.
about. So I said, great. You guys don't have to worry about me anymore.
Yeah.
Well, they said, well, no, this is our job.
Yeah.
One of the things they told me when they first told me, and I was 19 when things were opening up more for me. I'm a lot older than that now, of course, but and they said to me, we've been here your whole life. We're here to take care of you, make sure nothing happens to you, to educate you, teach you in every way we can, and to watch out for you the rest of your life. And I started to cry when they told me this.
That's
because
amazing.
I said, you know, you just have answered all my questions. And you've also made me probably the happiest person I could possibly be, knowing that you're there for me. When I have a question, I ask it. It's all telepathic. I ask it, and they give me an answer. And it's not answers that are figments of my imagination.
Yeah.
Because they reference things.
Yeah.
And it's that part of my life has been phenomenal. I feel very blessed, certainly very thankful, and I've never used it to hurt other people. I only use it to help people.
Yeah.
And because if someone's asking me for help, I do a Q&A with them to get as much information as I can. I never make up an answer.
Yeah.
I said, let me see if I can get an answer for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. At least sometimes those answers don't come right away.
Yeah.
But I don't let it go, but I keep in touch with the individual.
Yeah.
And I've developed some friendships as a result.
That's good.
Because things are what they are with me.
Yeah.
I didn't manufacture them. It was not something I did on my own volition.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with it. And I have to explain this to people like our younger daughter, and I say, this is something that happened to Nana
Yeah.
that I am the recipient of.
Yeah.
But all I can tell you is it's been an incredible life. I have 2 very wonderful daughters.
Yeah.
I've been very blessed with them, and I'm blessed in a lot of ways. I've had to work for some of it, but I understand all of it
Yeah.
because I've been helped to understand it all. And that's what brought me to today. And until this year, I never discussed it with anybody.
Yeah.
The most I've ever said is I'm an experiencer.
Yeah.
Because I now know a lot of experiencers.
Yeah.
But that's as far as it goes. So even when I'm talking to, a group, or now when I talked like in Dallas last year, or last fall,
On the panel.
as the panel, and I didn't say it on the panel because the questions didn't come direct. They said,
Yeah.
Are you an experiencer? And I said, yes, I
Yeah.
am. They asked everybody on the
Yeah.
panel were experiencers. And they were questioning us about our experiences, and that was pretty much it. And mine have been ongoing, of course. Not so much lately, because I'm just at the point in life where it's, they're probably not necessary. But afterwards, a young man came up to me backstage when we were cleaning up. And he introduced himself. And he said, I listened to everything you said. And I said, well, I'm very pleased to hear that, and I feel very gratified by that. Is there anything about what I said you'd like more questions? And he said, yes. He said, are you a hybrid? And I said, what made you ask me that question? Because I never alluded to that in any way. And he said, I got the sense when you were speaking that you're a hybrid. And I said, you are a very special young man. Please pay attention to everything that goes on in your thinking. Question everything. The answer to, he said, well, are you? And I said, you asked me a direct question, I'll give you a direct answer. The answer is yes.
So he
No one comes up and ever asks me if I'm a hybrid. You are the first. You are very special.
He sounds like he's at the beginning of his journey.
That's what I told him.
Yeah.
That's what I told him.
He's at that questioning, learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was thrilled that he was open
Yeah.
to that degree. And I told him, I said, never hesitate to ask anybody their questions. Because you are entitled to an answer. I just hope they give you an honest answer. I will never tell the truth to anybody. Now, when I was at the MUFON head table to help people that came up to learn more about that, there was this gentleman that came up. I realized, because I do have an ability to think through people's thoughts. Let it be at that. And he's asking me questions, and I asked him, I said, what brought you over to me?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't really have a strong answer for me, except that he had been standing behind others, waiting to talk to me, listening. And so what was his first response to coming over to see me was basically curiosity.
Yeah.
However, as I questioned him while he questioned me, I knew that he was a spotter. He was someone that was told to come and talk to me or anybody else that needed to be questioned in a casual way. His questions were not casual.
Yeah.
But I told him, I said, you're asking questions most people don't ask. Tell me why you're here.
Yeah.
And who sent you? He said, well, no, I'm just curious. And all this, that. Yeah. I said, okay, don't answer the question like that.
Yeah.
You're asking me questions that no one just out of curiosity ever asks.
Yeah.
Why are you asking them? He said, my curiosity goes that far. And I said, well, I'll answer to the best of my ability, but I'm not going to give you any lies. You ask me directly, or I won't answer directly. So he started asking directly, but the one question he never asked was, am I a hybrid? So I never had to answer that.
That's good.
But he was asking questions about experiences. Are you ever on the ship? And I said, oh, yes. Do you know what they were doing when you were on the ship? I said, well, mostly educating me. They educated me. They raised me in a manner of speaking since I was a child. He said, since when? I said, oh, I can remember back to 3 years old. I don't remember them all, but I remember certain experiences. And told him some of the things that I told you, but not in that much detail.
Yeah.
And I, told him, I told him whatever I could.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not here to manufacture an answer. I either recall it and know it for a fact, or I don't.
Yeah.
So you have to be the question answer, the one to ask the questions. I'm not going to presume questions in your mind.
Yeah.
So go ahead and ask what you want to, and I'll give you the best answer I can that's truthful.
Yeah.
So it went on for another 15 or 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I don't think he was getting what he was looking for, but he wasn't asking what he was looking for.
Yeah.
If you're not asking, you're not getting an answer.
I'm not giving you more than you ask. Exactly.
So another small experience, just that I was always trying to validate myself, because even though I was comfortable with me, I always felt I needed to keep validating myself about different things. And little things would continue to happen. And I was standing outside on the driveway at my parents' home. This is before I was married. And it was an unusually clear night. And in Boston, and even in the suburbs, you didn't have very many clear nights where you could see the stars and everything without, there was always clouds. And this is one of those rare nights.
Yeah.
And I'm just out there because it was a beautiful night. It was summertime.
Yeah.
And a voice said to me, look up. Well, I was already accustomed to voices.
Yeah.
And they said, look up. And I, looked up.
Yeah.
And they said, well, look a little bit to your right. I said, okay, to my right. And there was a ship. And it was close enough for me to see. Now, it was more than 500 or 1,000 feet above me, but I could see the ship.
Yeah.
And I looked up and I smiled. And I said, thank you, guys.
Yeah.
I talk to them like that all the time. If they're telling me something, I said, thank you, guys. I always look up like I'm looking at them. Even from driving down the road. I said, thank you, guys.
Yeah. That's good.
It's a dumb thing to do when I'm driving. But in any event, actually, I've learned not to look up when I'm driving. But,
don't do that.
but they do talk to me when I'm driving. Sometimes they tell me, take the next, get off a little earlier and go around. In other words, they're telling me, don't
avoid some place.
Avoid. So they really are watching out for me, and I've learned to pay attention.
Yeah.
When I met my husband, through conversation, he learned over time that I was an experiencer. And that's all I was comfortable telling him. And actually, I didn't even tell him that until we started going to MUFON. I didn't know how he would think of me.
Yeah.
We were already married into the 40 years plus at that time. And when we joined MUFON together after moving here to Scottsdale,
Okay.
we were living in Scottsdale first. We came back from a meeting. I said, I never told you, but I'm an experiencer. He said, well, I kind of figured you were because of everything you tell me, everything you know. I said, oh, okay. And so that went along
Best
fine.
kind of
We were
reaction.
like, yeah, it was fine. I said, phew, that's a relief.
You're worrying about it. He's like, it's fine.
But then we came back from another MUFON meeting just a couple of years ago, X number 5 years, 7 years ago, and someone was talking about being not a hybrid, but being taken. I'm not sure if he was talking about being a hybrid. I don't think he was talking about being a hybrid. He's talking about just being taken, experiences, and being on the ship. So on the way home, I thought, this is possibly an opportune time to tell him more. So I told him, I've already been taken. He said, well, I kind of figured, And I let things go for a few days, and then we're talking casually one night, and I said, I think I need to tell you more about myself. He said, there's more? And I said, yes. I said, would you like to sit down?
Yeah, he's like,
I told him, I said, well, I am who you think I am, but I'm not what you think I am. He said, what?
Yeah.
I said, well, I'm an experiencer. Yes. I said, what I've never had the guts to tell you is I'm also a hybrid. And he just looked at me, and I said, well, I don't see anything different about you. I said, that's right, you don't, because it's maybe only 30%. The 30% shows in my DNA.
Yeah.
I said, the rest of it is all about things that I know without an education, that I understand. Things like the astrophysics when I went to conferences, and things I would never have studied. I never studied, and scientifically, and all of a sudden having this interest when I got to 5 or 6 years old in space and the stars and all this. I said, no one ever talked about the galaxy in my family. No one barely even knew the difference between a star and a sun.
Yeah.
In reality, there's not always a difference.
Yeah.
But anyway, I said, this didn't come from any education in my family.
Yeah.
So, and I said, it just showed itself. So anyway, we went on like that. And as I said, we're married now. We're having our 52nd anniversary at the end of this year. So he knows pretty much everything about me now, but he was always very good about it and very accepting of it. And he learned to work with it. And on the funny side of things, he would start to tell me something, and I have this habit of finishing his sentences. I think a lot of women do that with their husbands. But
Well, being married 52 years will do that to you,
yeah,
too.
really. But what was
You already know it's coming.
Yeah, what was happening was I would start saying things to him that he hadn't said to me. How did you know? I said, oh, I just guessed.
Yeah.
But I was reading his mind.
Yeah.
Now, I don't really say that to a lot of people because it's not nearly, I'm not reading their minds. First of all, I would never do anything that could be hurtful to other people. I don't care what other people are thinking. And I don't allow myself, I always pull myself away from it if I start noticing something that someone's thinking. I pull myself away from it unless I see or understand they're thinking about something to hurt me.
Yeah.
Then I just take a different tact
Yeah.
and a different approach. I just stop the conversation, or I say, well, it was nice meeting you, nice talking with you.
Yeah.
Have a good life or whatever.
Yeah.
We'll see you again sometime. So I have that ability sometimes to take care of myself, but I think more often than not, it's my family, being's family, that are continuously watching over me. One thing that's interesting, a lot of people I've worked with have had experiences, bad or good, with the reptilian races, because there are benevolent reptilian races along with malevolent. And But when people think about reptilians, they automatically feel they're all malevolent.
Yeah.
Now, I
We've
have
heard
been, I have been advised over years, when I talked to you about Cynthia Crawford a little while ago, who, may she rest in peace, was a good friend. We became good friends because of everything you're hearing. And she's the one that did this sculpture, because you can just hold that. And this is her rendition of a blue Arcturian. And she said, you're a white Arcturian, Annie, but this is an example of what your race looks like.
Okay.
And I just thought it'd be more interesting doing it as a blue rather than a white, but the whites will look just like this except their skin tone.
Yeah.
And she said, I don't know why there's different skin tone. I don't have an answer for you either.
Yeah.
No one's ever asked me, but no one knows.
Exactly.
Arcturian, so,
Why is
and
there
if I
different
said
skin tones with
Arcturian,
us?
I said,
Who
they,
knows?
they wouldn't know a thing. So just letting you know what that sculpture as a result has a great deal of meaning for
Yeah,
me.
it's beautiful.
And I can look at that every night as a memory of Cynthia, whom I've never gotten over her loss.
Yeah.
She was just an incredible, incredible human being.
Well,
and I'm very fortunate and blessed to have had that opportunity of knowing her.
And a very good friend.
And as a good friend, absolutely. She didn't have an opportunity to go out that much. And so I made a point a couple of times a week, let's get together, go out to lunch, my treat.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we
you were
talked.
close.
And we would talk.
Yeah.
And we were close. So, so things like that had happened, and I got to know her after I'd been married. And it's been an interesting thing in my life in that particular point of time. And another time, I became seriously ill. This is again related to my family of beings that I kind of poo-poo. I always needed more validation on everything that was going on. And back when I was about 28, again, it's a while back. Yeah. Although I'm very healthy, but I did take seriously ill. And it landed up infecting my liver, because when I diagnosed, it turned out to be a diseased gallbladder that no one was treating me for. I'd gone to several doctors. We were living in California at that time, I think. And wherever we were. No, we were still in Boston. And wherever we were. I remember the house. So I was younger than 28. So in any event, I'd gone to the doctor for a year. Several doctors. And they kept saying, you're just a young wife at 25, that's how old he was, not 28, that needs more attention from her husband. We've been married a year and a half at that point. And I walked out of there shaking my head, calling him every name in the book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I said, this is not from needing attention from my husband.
Yeah.
I said, my husband needs attention from me. I said, I'm out all the time doing things. And I said, not only that, I'm a competitive athlete. I'm hardly home.
Yeah.
So, to myself. So, in any event, finally went to someone else, and another doctor. And I was in a hospital because I was in an emergency. Oh. And told them what had been going on. And they did blood work, and they said, you got a diseased liver. Your gallbladder is also diseased, and the gallbladder disease that never got treated infected your liver. So I was near death.
Yeah.
So these things were going on, and I landed up in the hospital. Near death, they put me in the hospital. And I was on life support for a while. And I'm communicating with my being's family. And I was in a lot of pain. And I said, I can't go on in any more pain. Yeah. I said, please let me go. Just let me go. And they said, no, we've got too much for you to do. You're not ready to die, and we're not going to let you die. you got a long way to go. And I did obviously recover.
Yeah.
Took a little time, but they stayed with me. And that was the biggest validation I could ever have.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were right there for me. They
Yeah.
said, no, we've got too much for you to do.
Not yet.
Yeah, it's just not your time.
Yeah.
I will never forget that moment. That's one of those visual moments
Mm-hmm. Oh,
that
yeah.
was very blessed to have and experience. And I think I mentioned at the beginning, if I didn't, I'll mention it now, that one of the times on the ship, yes, when they asked me if I wanted to look at planet Earth,
Yeah.
I said, oh boy, yes. And I ran up to the window with my hands forward, and that's when they stopped me in my
Yeah.
tracks. They said, no, you're going to crash the ship. And that's when they told me that all the controls are
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
And you've got a very high energy field. You're going to crash the ship. And we're way out of orbit,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
I mean, so in any event, those two visuals are two of the strongest visuals I probably will go to my grave remembering,
Oh, yeah.
because not very many people, except the astronauts, unless you're looking at films from
Get to
satellites,
see.
to see planet Earth. And I didn't see the entire planet. It was only halfway up. And I don't know what I was looking at because there was cloud cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there was water, but I don't know
What
Atlantic,
continent,
Pacific,
yeah.
continent. I really can't give anything else. And with that mentioning, during the radio interview, the 4-hour radio interview, the moderator kept asking me, what did the spaceship look like? And I said, what do you mean did it look like? I said, I was on the interior. And I said, I only know the ship I was on, and I always seem to be on the same ship,
Yeah.
because I don't remember anything different, and I'm always in the same area.
Yeah.
They said, they didn't take you for a tour? I said, no, I wasn't there for a tour. I was
Yeah.
there to be educated. And she said, well, what did the outside of the ship look like? And I said, I have no idea. She said, how could you know you're on the ship? I said, you have to understand something. This went on for 10 minutes.
Oh.
Kept asking me, what did the outside of the ship look like? And I said, I don't know. And I said, let me explain it to you again. One moment, I'm in spot A. The next minute, I'm on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
There's no transition. I'm not floating through the air going
Yeah.
onto the ship from the outside in. I'm here in my house or wherever, and bingo, I'm on the ship. I don't see anything in
Yeah.
between.
It's not like walking up to the plane and you see
Exactly.
the plane
Yeah,
on the outside
exactly.
before you
I'm
walk
not-
inside.
Exactly. In fact, I did tell her, I said, I didn't exactly walk up a runway
Yeah.
to get to the spaceship. But she kept for 10 minutes, kept asking me that question. And I said, look, I don't know what else to tell you. I'm not going to make
Yeah.
up anything. I have no idea what their spaceship looks like. I can't even imagine how many different types of ships
Yeah.
there are. There's the mothership. Then there's the scout ships.
Yeah.
I mean,
Look
you
how
mean
many
the
cars there
mothership and
are.
the scout ship. Well, the motherships don't usually come into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's the scout ships that people are seeing.
Yeah.
They're all different sizes, but they're scout ships. They're not going to bring the mothership, which is huge.
Yeah, I
She
can.
said, well, but you didn't
Yeah.
say it. I said, I'm not saying I saw the mothership. I'm just explaining to you.
Yeah, it's got to
I
be huge.
know.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Oh, wow.
we went on to something else.
After she gave up.
So
Has your experience always been good? You don't seem to have any fear or hostility or anger towards it. And I know that there is a lot out there that you always, and of course you always hear the bad story first.
right.
But I just kind of want to, you seem very calm and relaxed and excited every time.
I am. I am
So-
very, as I've said several times, and I say all the time, I feel so blessed to be who and what I am. It's been all good. And as I've also expressed, I've never used it to hurt anybody or be negative
Yeah.
towards anybody. All my experiences have been very, very positive. Now, the reason may be, number one, I've been involved since childhood, since I was very young. I was given the information about my involvement when I was very young, and I wasn't scared as a child. And there's never been anything to hurt me. And I feel that even on the ship, even when they took my first baby, by the way, my first pregnancy. They took. They told me when I asked them what happened to my first pregnancy, because I suspected.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know. I had a miscarriage.
Yeah.
But they had taken that baby. They eventually told me, because I kept asking. I said, you know I can handle it.
Yeah.
Please tell me. Well, we were at a conference, and I'm in the audience listening to one of the speakers, who happens to be another hybrid from England, who's also known to the industry. And they never had given me an answer. She walked up on stage and said, "This is the baby we took from you." Her age was accurate, and that's all I needed to know. I started to cry again.
Oh, yeah.
I said, "Oh my God, thank you so much." Now,
answers.
she's born and brought up in London with another mother. And when I had lunch with her, I had an occasion to have lunch with her, and I talked to her privately about it. She said, "You can't be my birth mother." I said, "I'm not your birth mother.
Yeah.
I was used to develop you for the first trimester.
Yeah.
And then they took me and put you into your birth mother.
That's amazing.
I was used to incubate you.
Yeah.
That's the word. I was used to incubate you. But when they told me, when you walked on stage, and I'd asked them for years, never forgetting it, because I didn't do anything to lose the baby.
Yeah.
And I was told, I said, it was amazing, and here I am talking to you after you just gave a talk. And they literally said to me, she couldn't question me too much about it because she goes through a lot of those experiences. So I was being very specific.
Yeah.
I said, you walked up on stage, and they said, you've been asking all these years, 20 or 40 years now,
Yeah.
what happened to the baby we took from you? This is the baby we took from you. She's the young lady we took from you as a baby. You incubated her for the first trimester.
That's amazing.
And I said, thank you. Thank you so much. I always thank them because it's always been positive.
Yeah.
I think in part, perhaps because I'm one of them. They don't hurt their family.
Yeah.
This particular race doesn't hurt people, but they've made it possible for me to have these experiences, have all these wonderful positive aspects of my life that probably I would not have had without being what I am, not just who I am. And from an early age, because they don't, there are a lot of children, because I've heard about them talking to my research people, a lot of my research people, where they talk about they had never had anything go like this before. And I started asking, do you have any children? Well, yes. And I say, well, do any of the children ever express anything? They say, well, as a matter of fact, now that you're mentioning it, something I forgot about, whether it be a son or whether a daughter, they used to tell me they were talking to visitors in their room. They're 5 years old, 6 years old, and I always ignored it. I said, well, you didn't know any differently. And children do make things up. But I asked this for a reason, because a lot of these children have turned out to be experiencers. And they're being visited at a very early age, and they do that because they know no one's going to believe them.
Yeah. And that helps make
But
them
these children
comfortable.
do not forget it, and they are becoming they become very comfortable with it, so they don't scream out in fear.
Yeah.
And they're not always fearful looking.
Yeah.
They're not reptilians that are necessarily coming to them.
Yeah.
They're races that people aren't going to run from too much. And a lot of people have no idea how many hybrids are walking this earth.
Oh, I can only imagine.
I can't even begin to fathom a count.
Yeah.
And no one would ever know the difference because they're not always visual. My eyes used to be a lot darker than they are.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older, and I'd always get a comment from someone, gee, your eyes are so dark. I mean, they were just extremely dark brown, very dark brown.
Mm-hmm.
But I figured, so that's not a problem.
Yeah.
And this before, I never really gave it any thought because, I am what I am, or I
Yeah.
am who I am, whether I knew or I didn't. And they were really dark brown, because I remember looking at pictures, and they've lightened up to an amber now. So as one gets older, things change. But, they have utilized me well. They never taught me or trained or educated me to do anything negative, hurtful, or rude. To always be truthful and just be what I am.
Well, I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier, is that with the scientific part and the medical, you know what I mean, that whole knowledge-based, you don't really go after people. It's strictly for information. Why
Let
would
them
you do
ask
that?
questions.
Yeah,
I'll
why
be
would you
glad
do
to
that?
ask. Yeah, if I know.
Yeah.
I don't, when it comes to science, technology, and medicine, I'm oriented in that direction.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I know it all. I'm
Yeah.
far from it.
Yeah.
Because when I went to college, I was an English major. So,
No, what can you do?
what can you do? Some of what I learned when I was working at Stanford.
Yeah.
It wasn't a major job. I did what I did.
Yeah.
But I always asked a lot of questions, and I always remember, because I was in one particular area, and I said to my boss, "Can I go up to this floor and get a job with them?" And that was more space oriented.
Yeah.
And they said, "No, the job is here." And I said, "Okay."
Yeah. At least you asked. So.
I have kind of a two-part question.
Absolutely, go ahead.
I guess the first part would be, in our experiences, we've heard a lot about hybrids, and may even know a few. My question is, why? And I say that as,
Why the hybrids?
what is the hybrid's role here on the
Okay,
planet?
that's an easy question to answer. You're sitting down, so
So we can't fall.
it's a long-range plan. More than 100 years, millennial, probably. As I understand it, and I don't believe I'm the only one that would give you this answer that was willing to do so, this whole planet will eventually be hybridized. Every hybridized human being, whenever it was, particularly if it's when they're younger, maybe before they've had children, male or female, doesn't matter. It gets passed on. Now, if, let's say, my mother was maybe a first generation, but no one ever would talk about it or ever understand it or know about it. So let's hypothetically say, because she had modifications, so those modifications passed on to me, so I was a hybrid. Actually, and they did me when I was still in the womb, so I wasn't even born. That's why they say we were with you your whole life. That includes being in the womb. Eventually, Earthlings have to move to another planet. This planet will die for one reason or another. The sun is already beginning to show signs of whatever changes are going on. And I'm not going to go into that. I'm not a scientist in that area. I'm just aware of it, but I'm not going to spout about something that I don't have specific answers. But it's the sun in the long run is going to die. That's the long-term effect. As it dies, guess what happens to this planet? We are dependent upon sun, the light, the heat, the energy, everything. And there's nothing to take its place.
Right.
Before that happens, the migration will have already begun, because it will become even more and more apparent. And they're always looking for planets that are inhabitable, that are Earth-like. And they're starting to find more and more because of all our telescopes that are out there, and satellites. So they're working at it because science knows this. even if it's well beyond their time. So you don't just say, whoops, folks, we have to, everybody pack up, we're moving you all to another planet. It doesn't happen like that. So once they've identified the places or planets, it may be more than one, whatever solar system it's in, who knows. But as they learn more and more, they'll find more and more, and they may already be inhabited, but there may be opportunities for humans from Earth to go over. So between now and then, however, humans have to be able to adapt to space travel. Unless you're a trained astronaut and you've got all that equipment you're wearing and going on, you know, the shuttle, whatever you're going on, a lot of people are not going to be able to make it. The hybridization process is to help part of that, okay? And it won't even become evident to a lot of the people that they are hybrids, because it's just going to happen because I'm hybridized. So wouldn't it be natural for me to think my children are going to be? Well, yes, one of them is. She doesn't recognize it or doesn't want to recognize it. The other one, I really don't know if she is or not. It doesn't mean it's 100%.
Yeah.
Right.
But what happens is, if I hadn't married my husband, who's not a hybrid, but I am, and let's say I happen to have met someone that was, what's going to happen to that percentage point of hybridization in our children?
Right.
It becomes more factual, it becomes more obvious in some way, not to the individual necessarily without blood work being done.
Yeah.
So mine's only 30%. So I call I'm writing a book at the moment, but it's about how I became what I am, and why the book is titled the way it is. I won't give out the title right now, but it's an obvious title at the fact of things. So it's more people. It'll be nice, and I'm hoping that an organization like MUFON or other aspects, whether it be through something like this or other programs that are out there on the radio that have a lot of people calling in, and I know half their listening audience probably is saying, this is the crappiest thing ever.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm on film. This is the most ridiculous thing I could ever hear. But they're listening to the program for a reason. They must be curious. But the point is, as evolution continues on the human race, eventually there'll be more hybrids, and more hybrids will be marrying hybrids.
Yeah.
No one will know unless they've actually had a need to know,
Right.
having their DNA done.
Yeah.
So that's the long-range plan as I am told, as I'm educated. This is all part of my education, by the way. This isn't something I thought up. This is something I was advised about starting back when I was 3 years old, telling me how they're going to prepare me for my life and how my life will help prepare others. Essentially, that was the long-range goal. And I have since known someone. We don't see each other very often, but we got introduced through a mutual friend. Turns out she's also a hybrid. Didn't know. And and she had heard me talk about my experiences. And because at 3 years old to 5 or 6 or 7 years old, I'm being taken to what I was told by my mom. That's all she knew was that, oh, you're going to a play day with other children like you. Well, like me meant other 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, right? What did I know? I met this other woman. We got to know each other. And then through an email, she said, by the way, I didn't, or at lunch, or I don't remember whether it was by email or what, but she said to me, she said, by the way, I didn't tell you. She was turned out, she was born and brought up in the community next door to mine. I was brought up in Newton Center, Massachusetts, which is a western suburb of Boston. She was born with the next community over and brought up in Boston. In Brookline, very next door by community.
That's cool, yeah.
And she said to me one day, she said, I had the exact same experiences and was told by my mother I'm going to a play school for other children like me, and it was in Newton. I said, holy... I mean, the chances in
Oh, my
life for
goodness.
that to have happened from back on in Boston
That's amazing.
to now, wherever I was at
Yeah.
that time. I think I was at another home in maybe out here in Volcano or Scottsdale.
Yeah.
We've moved around. I like to build homes,
Yeah.
as I told you.
Yeah.
So in any event, that was another eye-opener, as it would be for anybody. Someone that I already had met, who then said they had gone through the exact same experiences and apparently was at the same exact play school.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's not like there was one in every corner
Yeah.
for these people.
Yeah.
It was only by children who had been hybridized.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't just being experienced. They were all hybrid children.
That's amazing.
I mean, what are the chances of
Yeah.
that? So life has a pattern to it. And in my particular case, I can't say this is what it is for everybody, because not everybody has gone through this aspect of life, either as an experiencer or, in my case, finds out that they're a hybrid. And I found out. This was not a choice. But it's been a very blessed opportunity in this life. Now, as an example, sometimes I've had opportunities to see a past life.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about my hip,
Yeah.
just a casual,
Yeah.
oh, by the way. And I've been a very active competitive athlete. And one problem I've had, and I've never fallen, between riding horses and training in dressage and then playing competitive tennis from Maine to Puerto Rico and things like that. Never had an accident, although I did get thrown once.
Yeah.
But other than that, from the horse. But other than that, never fell on the courts. And yet, things happen, stepped wrong, and had a hip injury. And talking to my beings family that I had, said one day, because it was getting very annoying for me because I wasn't able, I was having difficulty getting rid of it. I knew that it was joint and it was also soft tissue, so I had the two things. And I'd had it checked, orthopedically. And I said, why am I having this issue on this hip periodically? It heals and then something else happened. And they said, well, you injured it past life. And I said, I injured it. How did I injure this past life? And they said, would you like to see? I said, yes, very much. So, rather than tell me about it, show it to me.
Yeah.
It was a past life. It was my life previous to this, because they told me the time period. So it had to have been behest, because I know when I was born. And it took place comfortably before, but within the 10-year period. And they showed what was going on, that I was in a position. I was a child, I was a teenager, and teenagers worked for the military, and that was the cavalry at those days. So this goes back a ways, and it was in this country.
Okay.
So it wasn't in this location, wherever it was. And it may have been Civil War period. I never could get a reading on that, whether it was Civil War Revolutionary, but it was not. I think it was Civil War just based on the timing on it.
Yeah.
And I swear to this, not good. I mean, I don't have any other way except knowing what I was told and what I watched. And the commanding officers would have these teenagers that always worked to help with the horses and things like that. And I was a boy. I was male. And I guess I was about 12, 14 years old. That's how young I was. And he called by my name, whatever it was, or he said, boy, grab my reins. He's acting up. I have to be able to shoot, because he had, they used to shoot from the back of the horse rifle. And he, which turned out to me, held the reins. And the horse is running up, and I'm not much taller than I am now, I'm sure. And rearing up on me, and I'm grabbing him to bring him down and all of a sudden I got shot in the hip.
Oh.
And I went down. And that's why my hip had continued to follow me. And when I watched it,
That pain.
that pain was excruciating all of a sudden, and I hadn't heard it like that
Yeah.
now, or it wasn't, it was pretty much quiet as it gets.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always taping it
Yeah.
and wearing salon paws.
Yeah.
They just got an advertisement for the pains, but I swear by those. And in any event, and I won't do anything without wearing
Yeah.
some painkiller, not taking pills, but painkiller patches.
Yeah.
So these are the types of things that I feel blessed. If I have a question about
Yeah.
how or why, and I did, and that's when it became the issue. It healed, but that's why it obviously, because what I learned a long, long time ago, that no matter what life you're in, at least some portion of that life transfers up to your next life.
Mm-hmm.
You never void of anything 100% from a past life.
Yeah.
Now, whether people don't understand something that they may be going through in this current life, whatever it might be, they don't understand that some of that may have come from a past life. It's not necessarily bad. It sometimes can be good too. But there are things that will be carried forth, and you might not have any reason as to why. I can't provide those reasons other than something may have taken place in your past life.
Yeah.
But again, I do have to be careful with people I'm talking to, because I'm not looking to hurt them in any way.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know how they're brought up. I wasn't brought up with this knowledge.
Yeah.
I had to learn it by experience. And then because of what I am and who I am, I have learned a lot by asking questions. Answers did not come from my family,
Yeah.
but they've all proven to be truthful. I have to presume they're truthful unless I've been able to not validate them.
Yeah.
I constantly am out validating myself. No matter how positive I've been told over these years, all these years since I was 6, 7 years old. Doesn't matter. I always feel it's important for me to verify to me
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form, or validate it. And that's what I do.
Yeah.
But the other part of me is to help other people. I was given this knowledge for a reason,
Yeah.
without the educational background. And I don't make any bones about it. I never learned any of this in school. They wouldn't dare teach any of this in school.
Oh, they didn't know anything in school. I mean, like you said, that's the sun. There you go.
Yeah, sun, stars, and moon.
Yep, there you go. That's all you get.
That's right. And about how the moon interacts on us.
Yeah.
It's true. That's true. So I wouldn't know any of these things. I couldn't talk about them if I didn't know. They're nothing I can make up.
From what you're telling me, based on the hybrids, they're all here for a good thing, okay?
We all are, yes.
So why do you suppose then the secrecy? How come Joe Blow off the street doesn't know about it?
I think that's another easy to answer.
Okay.
It's not an understandable one, quite honestly, given what's going on with the space program and what they're discovering and what they're telling people and are starting to let people know. Now the government has admitted, just relatively recently, that there are UFOs out there, and the Air Force has encountered them, or whomever in the military, and the government has encountered them. They don't talk about when the White House was surrounded by them. They don't go back that far, but they are admitting that they are being seen. So that's a start. Think about the percentage of people on this planet, how many there are. And think about what percentage of these people understand, have an interest, or would be interested. It's a very small group of people. It's a very slow process. And more, probably daily, are starting to understand or want to know more. Whether they believe it or not, I can't speak for them, and I will never speak for someone else. And I know plenty of people who don't believe in this, and one of them happens to be my current primary care. when I made a very casual comment to her when she said, I don't understand what's going on with something. This is not the one that had that DNA done.
Okay.
Because this doctor in the same office, by the way, the other one isn't there anymore. But and I made a comment, and she said, I don't understand what's going on with your sister, without being too specific. So I made a very casual comment to her. And this is my current primary care. And she's excellent, by the way. I'd recommend it for anybody. And I made the comment, well, my system tends to be a little different from other people, which might change some things.
Yeah.
And she said, what do you mean? And I got caught in my own comment. And I said, well, I said, if I said to you I've been on the ship, would you know what I'm talking about? She said, no. Which I knew she wouldn't. And I was really challenged with how to present the information, if at all. And I said, well, and I'm thinking, this is about how I'm thinking all over again. I said, well, are you aware that we have life forms from elsewhere on this planet? She said, no. And she said, I don't even believe anything about that. And I said, okay. So I won't go any further.
As you're thinking to yourself, let's see if we can get her to pee if I tell you what's really happening.
And I said, well, the ships I've been on are those of other beings.
Yeah.
So I don't believe in any of that. I think it's a bunch of hogwash. I said, that's fine. Never to be discussed again.
Right.
Okay.
She's still my doctor.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that conversation she ever recalls from time to time.
Yeah.
Hopefully she
None of
recalls
it.
none of it,
Yeah.
quite honestly. But it was a tough situation, and she couldn't figure it out, and I was trying to appease her a little bit by giving her information, but was not willing to accept it.
Yeah.
And I am a concierge patient, which makes it even a challenge more. So if you think about people like that, which probably make up a significant amount of the population globally, along with those that, there are those now that may be halfway there, that are beginning to believe there are beings.
They're interested.
They're starting to develop an interest, exactly. If someone in a family becomes interested, and no one else is, perhaps more people have an opportunity to get interested. But if they don't have any information, and they don't have enough interest to gain information, they're not going to go to meetings.
Yeah.
They're not going to listen to what's on the Science Channel or anything that's relevant, or even pay attention to what the government is saying. So we're talking a millennial process here,
Oh, yeah.
which is the way, look how long it took to get this planet, the people on this planet, into this stage now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they've been around us for thousands of years. And if you read historically about this planet, you'll even read things. And they left petroglyphs.
Oh, yeah.
They're all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what's starting to come out now, to let people know there's no way those that lived back then, because they can carve and date what they find, as you know, but there's no way people back then could have ever understood what they were seeing when they talk about these fire ships that come down. They've been there. They have come here. Those fire ships were rockets. Some of them blasted fire, some of them didn't. They just didn't, they heard the sound.
Yeah.
You know, and all different shapes, all different sizes. Sometimes you'll find them having hieroglyphics of people or beings.
Yeah.
They didn't make that up. They had no reason to. How did they know? So that was the only way they could communicate, putting it onto stone.
Well,
Wake up, Earth people.
Yeah.
This has been going on for a very long time, since our planet started to evolve.
And you have to look back at the fact that those people were using arrowheads and just barely came up with fire. I mean, they had no concept of something flying in the sky, there's no way they could have made that up.
If it were us, we would have been scared out of our minds.
Yeah.
Well,
And gone for cover.
Exactly. I mean, you can't.
If you think about the last almost well,
100 years?
well, not quite 100 years, but you go back all the way back to Orson Welles. You go back to Hollywood making a
30s,
mockery out of it.
30s.
They send fear into people about it, not and that's
Yeah.
always really what Hollywood's been. Is always let's scare the hell out.
Hollywood's
of people.
changed. It just
Yeah.
go take, they're doing more and more. A lot of their science fiction movies, and some of them are really quite interesting. I can't pinpoint any of the current ones right now, but I remember, was it 2001: A Space Odyssey that was our first date?
Yes.
Okay. If you saw that and didn't, I recommend you see it. One of the first comments Marvin made to me as we walked out of the theater was, "Did you believe any of that?" And I said, "I believed all of it." Then we had to get into the discussion why
Yeah.
and how. So that started, and that was when we were dating. But it was an interesting start.
Yeah.
But his work in the space program, I feel the whole thing about our coming together was meant to be.
Yeah.
Knowing about my other boyfriends that I'd had, and they were all wonderful people, all wonderful gentlemen. As I said, made a brief comment, I always date older than I was, so, anyone my age just couldn't have fathomed anything. And none of them would ever have an interest in it. So when Marvin came along, it was a sign that this was going to be a more interesting relationship. And it first came out when our first date, we were introduced one night. I was on contract at the company where we met, and he worked. And we set up a dinner date for a couple of days later, or the next day. And that's when I learned a little bit more about him. And didn't learn a lot, and some of his work was black program, so he couldn't talk about it. But on a broad basis, he could start telling me about some of his work. And I knew in my heart, this is the guy for me. Because I knew, black program or not, there was an awareness, an understanding, and an intelligence. Whether he could talk to me about his work completely or not was incidental. He knew, he was aware.
He understood.
And he understood, and he believed. I couldn't ask for any more.
No.
Plus, he was an incredibly nice guy.
Well,
That helps.
that's the icing.
And just intelligent. And all the other thing that I joke about with him is that I don't think I ever dated, once I dated someone that was maybe 5 feet. I'm only 5 feet. And all my boyfriends, 6'2", 6'5". Marvin comes along, 5'7.5", Marv?
Close enough.
Close enough. And it was the perfect balance intellectually, interest-wise, professionally. How could I go wrong?
Yeah.
All right, he had been married once before, so what? I didn't fault him about that. That happens.
Yeah.
Took him time to find Mrs. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Practice.
And I actually know his former wife, and we get along fine.
That's good.
But along the same line of questioning, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. It won't happen overnight to hybridize everybody. More hybrids have to be created to the point where percentage-wise, more hybrids are creating more hybrids. And it's just repeating the process. And eventually, you're going to have 5, 6, 7, 8 generations. It'll be probably 10 generations before the Earth is inhabited by mostly hybrids. It's really quite simple. It's just a very long process. And, that's why I say by the time, there's no rush. We don't have to leave this planet overnight. They've calculated how long, how many millennial, if that, it's going to take for the sun to burn up and die. It'll just like that. And we will have to have been off the planet at that point. And the scientists, everything will be planned accordingly. But right now, they're just starting, and they've been looking for other planets that can take life, handle life. They've been looking for years now. But they're in a race now. How many more? How many can we? Doesn't mean everybody's going to go to the right planet. It depends on the planet, and it already may be inhabited.
Right,
That planet has to be friendly to us. I can give you so many caveats that have to be dealt with at that point. They'll all be handled along the way, and it will all happen. But the only way the human race can make that journey and transition is as a hybrid. As we are, or everybody that is as a full human now, none of them would be able to make it, very few by comparison. We have to be prepared to re-inhabit. So does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the human body is very fragile.
It's
It wouldn't be
very
able to take.
casual. I learned to listen to what I was being told. These are all things I've been told, by the way. It's not something I read. It's not something I heard. I heard it from my own family of beings, who, as I'm aware of, are Arcturian. Not blue, though. And there may be, I don't know if there's another race involved. I've asked. I have not been advised. There may be nothing more to advise me about that. It is what it is. Certainly, I'm as human looking as anybody.
Yeah.
And that is the case for many within my time period. However, and I wish I had a family to refer you to.
Yeah.
I don't, however, at this point. Some of the children today who have been created hybrid with hybrid
Oh,
do have anomalies
physically.
that are more
Can be
obvious
seen.
Right.
to visualize and see. One of the places that comes out more that would be obvious are their eyes. Big black eyes. They may not have any white. There is a case of mine. He was an experiencer. He got pregnant. His girlfriend got pregnant. They're now married, by the way. His girlfriend got pregnant, and I'm still in touch with him, and I talk to him fairly often. And while she was pregnant, she had to go. She had like 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks to go. But there were some things going on. So the doctor wanted to make sure the baby was kept safe. And the only way they could do that was to hospitalize her. I guess they were showing signs of a possible, of her possibly losing the baby early.
Percent of preview or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. While she was in the hospital, and I'm still communicating with him on a regular basis, and she calls me now herself. And while she was in the hospital, and she had a private room, beings came in to check on her every day. She saw them to make sure that baby was okay. The only reason they would do that is if that baby were a hybrid,
Yep.
which it did turn out to be. When the baby was born perfectly healthy, the eyes were shape-shifting. That is another indication. Now, you don't always see eyes shape-shift. Now, my friend Cynthia, her eyes shape-shifted. She had the most incredible bright blue eyes you could ever see on anyone. I've never seen anyone else that had eyes like hers, just the color alone.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah. And you'd be talking to her eyes are shape-shifting. It's a fascinating experience. Now, I'm a hybrid, but I've never been
Yeah.
able to see my eyes
Yeah.
shape-shift like that.
Yeah.
So, there are different balances. So this baby, on my casework, that first baby is a hybrid. And I said, please get her DNA done as soon as you can.
And
I've
keep
gotta
those
ask them
records
if
to
they've done it.
yourself.
And while they won't be given the records, but whatever they tell you, make note of it, and any records you can get them.
Yeah.
I don't care if they're perfect or there's an anomaly.
Yeah.
You get them. They
Yeah.
belong to you, because I've still never gotten mine.
Yeah.
They've had a second baby. This baby's a hybrid too. So she had been hybridized
Okay.
to some degree prior to
To
being
this,
pregnant
yeah.
the first time. It's hard to tell what percentage, and it doesn't mean these babies are a high percentage. I suspect they're a low percentage. Mine supposedly is 30%, not more.
Yeah.
However, that was based on ancestry coming back. Now, I expected ancestry to come back with no answer
Yeah.
over the hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
But they came back, said, we put it through 6 different testings ourselves, and we can't read 30% of it consistently. There may be more,
Yeah.
but 30% was consistent. That's all I know.
Yeah.
That's the only validation other than knowing that
Yeah.
and my organs aren't quite in all the right place. That I found out when they went in for gallbladder surgery. It was supposed to take, this is another example. I said, how long is the surgery supposed to take?
Yeah.
I was afraid to tell them about having the blood, they always have a transfusion on you just in case they're ready to go. And I never said anything about that. I just told them my blood type, and that I did get typed out. But anyway, so I said, how long is this surgery supposed to take? This is a gallbladder. It's cut.
Yeah. Pretty quick.
Open, grab, cut,
Take.
stitch up.
Yeah.
He said, 45 minutes,
Yeah.
including opening and closing.
Yeah.
I said, okay, fine. The surgeon, I remember this. I was wheeled in at 9:30 in the morning. They were going to start the surgery at 10. At 9:45, I said to them, so how come you haven't started my IV? Because I've had enough surgeries, right? And they said they were preparing it, getting it ready. So they started the IV, and I watched the clock. It was 5 minutes to 10. And I said, how long do you expect this to take? I know all the different ones because I have resistance to some and overreaction to others.
Yeah.
My system. And I said, do me one favor before I pass out, before I fall asleep. Track everything closely. I said, not all anesthesias are going to work on me properly. Never had time to tell them anything more. That's all I needed. I was out like a light. So, but I saw the clock, and I was always watching the clock because I always look at the clock when I wake up or when I'm in recovery. So that was at 5 minutes to 10. I'm in recovery, and I believe I looked at the clock when I came out of the anesthesia, 4 o'clock.
Oh my goodness.
And I had a nurse attending me while I was coming out of. I can't imagine how much anesthesia they must have given me, or how it reacted on me. They couldn't wake me up.
Yeah.
I don't know how long the surgery took, and I never got an answer. And I said to them, 4 o'clock, they put me out at just before 11. This was supposed to be a 45-minute surgery. I said, what happened? And she said, well, I don't know. I said, well, how long have you been with me? She said, about 3 hours.
Yeah, she just knows when she got you.
Yeah. And I'm just waking up. And I looked at the clock, and it was 4. Well, I knew something happened. I healed. I got better. The surgeon was a close friend of my family's. His in-laws were close friends of my family. So I went, the surgeon was a known entity to me and I to him. I shouldn't use the word entity, individual. His wife, because they knew me, she called me a few weeks after I came out of the hospital, and I was home. And she said, hi, Annie, and told me who it was. And she said, I want to find out how you're doing, because you had a rough time. I said, well, I gathered something happened because the surgery started at 10, and I was in recovery not until 3 or 3:30, and I woke up in recovery at 4.
Yeah.
So obviously something happened, and I asked the nurse, and she said, I don't know.
She didn't know.
She didn't know. She said, they lost you twice on the table. I said, well, I'm not surprised. And I said, anything else? She said, well, your gallbladder wasn't where it was supposed to be.
That kind of throws things
And
off.
they had to fish around for it a little bit. So I said, okay.
Could have been why they couldn't diagnose you either. Because they're looking in one place and it's not there.
I went into abdominal surgery one more time years later. And that first time was for the appendicitis.
Mm-hmm.
I have to stand corrected. That was an appendectomy.
Okay.
The next time was for my gallbladder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a different surgery years later. They had their own issue when they took out my appendix. Couldn't find things. The second surgeon for the gallbladder had a more difficult challenge because that was not where it was supposed to be, but it was heavily diseased. And as a result, it also infected the liver because it was still in the same region, just not in the right location.
Just not exactly, yeah.
That they expected. So, and they didn't say anything about the blood work on that one. And I asked them, I said, oh, the doctor just, I don't have the records on that in front of me.
Yeah.
They had to have checked my blood, and they
Yeah.
had to have
Oh,
done
100
some
times.
checking, at least. So I don't know what happened. So when they don't turn the records over to me, I know there was a problem. Or to them, they
found
can't
something.
figure it out. So, you live with it, and you go with it, and you
used to it
can't
now.
talk about it
Yeah.
until things like this. And, never talked about it like this to anybody else, other than very briefly.
Yeah.
But, through your Q&A, and you're welcome to keep asking questions, because I might not recall it to mention it unless you ask a question.
Yeah.
So you're still welcome to ask.
I think she kind of answered it. That was just, I just wonder if there were any instances where your daughter ever had to have her DNA tested.
I've asked them to do it, and they won't do it.
They won't.
No. And that just brought up something else also. Oh, I told you that when I wanted to go, I wanted to leave the planet. They wouldn't let me die, and I was so close to dying, so close to it. And I said to myself, well, good luck getting me out of this one.
Yeah. Got your work cut out for you now.
But they did, and I do remember that. So certain incidences over my life like that, and yet there's been a lot of normalcy also. Now, maybe someone would say normal for me, not for anybody else, but for me it was normal. Because I've had to live with it my whole life, so therefore it's a normal part of my life. And I'm trying to think of other things to have told you. I mean, I've seen other planets. I saw Earth. Seeing Earth was the most magnificent visual I could probably ever have, because so few would ever see it. And I was at when the astronauts are in orbit around Earth, I'm not sure how high, what kind of orbit they're in. Marv, do you? When the satellites go up and the astronauts are in there, are they at high orbit or low Earth orbit? I think they were low Earth orbit. Low Earth. I was higher than low Earth. I was in at least upper mid Earth orbit, because I was able to see at least half the planet going up. If I had been a little higher, I may have seen the entire planet. But what I saw was, I can't explain how magnificent it was. I'm, maybe if I ask enough, they'll take me up to high Earth orbit so I can see the entire planet, but I'm not counting on that. And I see it like it happened yesterday. That's how vivid it is. When I went, it's these images are phenomenal. And if you talk to anybody else with similar kinds of experiences, it would be interesting if I were to know what they went through and how. I know, like it was yesterday, I ran up because I was all excited. My hands were like this up to the panel, just so I could lean over and look out the window. That was another reason I couldn't see more, probably. But if we'd been in higher Earth orbit, I would have. Because I know I was mid-Earth from pole to pole. And I just have no idea, other than knowing there was water, but there was no way with cloud cover to know exactly what continents I was looking at. Nor would I have maybe recognized the European continent. I would have recognized the North American continent. So that's why I know that it wasn't there. I just don't know if I was off of it from there, across the Atlantic, more of the European continent, or on the other side, on the opposite side of America. So I can't even answer that. And I've wrecked my brain, and I keep seeing the same thing over and over and over again. I time traveled once, by the way, which was an interesting experience. I didn't enjoy it as much as all these other experiences because I can remember those. The time travel I can remember, I'm not sure why. And I think it was just to send me out into the future to some degree, but not like the other guy I was talking to you about. This was very brief. And I did come back okay. So I don't know if I was sent out
Maybe it
as
wasn't
far
that long,
or as far out. But I do remember that, and I want to recover it to tell you, but I came back, I had no changes. I saw people, so I saw a tad of the future. I really have no idea how far into the future it was. It may only have been a couple of years, I don't know. I suspect it may have been a little longer than that, but I did not see automobiles, anything that would be recognizable to me to make me aware of anything. And it could be that they took me out, but it's possible I wasn't reacting properly, and they brought me right back. And that's the only thing I can surmise, because it's not something every human body might be able to handle. And maybe something took place I wasn't aware of, and only remembered a very, very brief portion of it. But it had nothing to do with it had nothing to do with being on the spaceship, I know that. I just remember seeing into the future, going out to it, and then coming back on a rather quick basis on that matter. But seeing Earth and seeing the ship, I go back to that memory so often. And I asked to make sure that when I die, I remember that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not likely to ever have anything like that again to remember. Not of that nature anyway. I'll have other nice things, but of that nature. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to go to NASA. I wanted to work for them, and I just wasn't qualified in any way whatsoever, really.
Yeah.
And to go through the training they had. So that's why they may have allowed me to see the planet like that. But whatever it was, I was so grateful, and so grateful for anything they do for me, everything, because it's all positive. And why other people aren't getting positive experiences, to get back to the very beginning of some of that question, I don't know if I have even an answer for it. It may be up to why they're even being approached.
Yeah.
It could be how they're reacting. And a lot of them don't react in a positive way.
Yeah.
And they may have been hurt. Now let's take an example, and I've talked to a lot of men about this, because a lot of men who have been abducted, they remember them on the ship, and what's happening is hurtful to them, because they're draining They're draining sperm from them. Hybridization. They're not just hybridizing us, they're hybridizing themselves. In order to hybridize themselves, from the men they take the sperm, and from the women they take the ova. So, you know, they're hybridizing themselves just as quickly. So this is another reason that given X period of time, this planet will be more hybrids than none. And they have to be hybrids in order to relocate and start colonies on other planets. They'll all be hybrids most likely, and maybe eventually that'll wear down and the humans will look different than the hybrids do.
Yeah.
You know, if you think of the process being reversed, it's actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
That, you know, you're starting at this point, you go to this point, and then from this point you go back to point one. So they're all different aspects of it that are, and it's a challenge for many people to visualize, consider, and think about. Visualizing is probably out of the question for most of them.
Oh, wow.
Visualizing would also be out of the question, and thinking about is pretty close to out of the question.
Yeah.
So I wish more people did have opportunities like mine,
Yeah.
because I've never talked to anybody else, even on my research, where people have said anything has been positive, and I feel badly for them. And it doesn't matter how much I get out of them, there's nothing positive for them. And there's one young lady I met at a conference, very nice young lady. Got to know her, gave her my number, and she had an experience. She lived in San Francisco, and this was in San Jose, the conference. And I remember this enough and well enough for it to be told, but I'm not going to give her name. She approached me at the conference and landed up having lunch with her. And I landed up calling her because her work was, what she had gone through was when she felt that she had been taken the night before. So I said, let's talk about this more so we can do it more privately. There's no need for anybody else, because it was crowded. I said, I don't want you to worry about anybody else hearing this conversation. So I said, give me your number, and here's mine. And we talked the following week. And she had been taken again. So we worked off just the newest one. Sorry, my lips are dry. And she had been out of bed, and she had someone tell her, she'd gotten a communication, lie down. She didn't want to lie down. She wasn't ready to go to bed. They said, lie down. So she lay down. Next thing she knew, she was seeing other planets. And here, there, wherever. And I'm asking her questions so that I get an idea of where she may have been. Because was it our dimension, or was she taken to another dimension? That's a challenging situation to evaluate, quite honestly. And I certainly do not claim to be an expert when it comes to dimensions. I continue to have an understanding. I don't have what I consider a great deal of knowledge about them to talk intelligently, quite honestly. But I'm aware of them. So she was talking about all these different planets she was looking at, and I said, did you see Earth? She said, well, no, I didn't, but some of the planets I was looking at had Earth. So it's possible she was taken around the solar system. And so we talked about it. And she was being utilized as a human being to understand and learn about what this planet is still learning. Not so much at the moment to be a communicator, because she was young. She was college age, although she was out of college. But young, that's, for me, it's young. So I said, did they hurt you? That's one of the first things I asked them, because she remembered being on a table at one time, too, in one of her experiences. Did they hurt you? And at that time, they had hurt her, and she remembered she got upset with me about this one because she called me another time. This was Elsa's time. And she said, you refused to help me. I said, well, what are you talking about? She said, I was on the table. The door was open, and it was hurting, and I looked out the door, and you were sitting further out, and you were looking at me, and you weren't helping me. And meanwhile, I'm crying out of help. And I saw, when she's told me about it, then I developed that imagery from it. And I said, now I see you. I said, I see you now. I did not see you then. And the one I saw was there were beings in front of that person on that table. They must have known that I was sitting so I could see you. They also knew if I knew it was you, I would have come over and interfered with what they were doing. And I said, that's the only reason I would have been blocked from seeing you. Mm-hmm. Did you get hurt? And she said, well, momentarily. And I said, did it continue? She said, no. Did they take care of you? Yes. Did they ask you if you were okay? Yes. Did you come back and find yourself in bed okay? She said, yes. Are you okay now? Yes. Are you hurting now? No. So now tell me about what you started to see. So it was a combination. They took her to show other planets because that's how they're letting people more know about it, who aren't going to be going out and maybe interfering with the process, I guess. And in her case, because she was a young woman, they were utilizing, and I told her this, they were utilizing some of your your eggs, to help hybridize others. Because they're capable of generating more. So, and the same thing, you know, with the sperm and everything, they can create more, but they have to have a percentage of reality involved. And that's why some people, when they're talking on the ship, are finding humans in tanks with hoses attached to them. They have to be able to breathe. Yeah. You know, that type of thing. And they're humans that are going through a hybridization process, not necessarily through the normal process. Because it will take too long if they waited for everybody to be born 9 months here and 9 months there. So, you know, I mean,
generation.
It would never happen. So they do all the hybridizing, a lot of it themselves now at this point, but they're also hybridizing themselves. So if they see an alien with a hose, that means they're being humanized. And if you see a human with a hose, they're being humanized. And people don't always see this or understand it. And not everybody has recollections of what they see, by the way. So I may have it, but you may talk to someone else, and they would say, well, what is she talking about? Well, because they don't know. I was prepared for all this information. I was brought up with it, starting at the age I was. And some of it didn't become apparent until I got older because I wasn't able to. I mean, I didn't know where children came from at 3 years old, quite honestly. So everything was taught to me in a period of time. There are times they let me know, like when I saw that young lady getting on stage, I broke down. I actually had to walk out. I listened as much as I could, and I had to walk out, not because of being upset. I had asked for 40 years, 45 years, what happened to her, because I never, ever forgot that I lost my first pregnancy, and yet I never bled. The doctor asked me, did you bleed? And I said, no. He said, I don't know how you can have a miscarriage and not bleed. And bleed. Well, I knew, but what am I going to tell him?
Yeah, can't tell him.
I can't tell him my baby was taken. Well, taken to my home. You know, no, it doesn't work that way. So I have all these things that you can't talk about. And to people that it would be nice if they understood or knew about, but you can't. You know, you talk about someone in the medical community, I'm far from ready to be put into a psych ward. It's not a psych ward issue. And once you're in there, it doesn't matter what you say, you can't
They
get
ain't letting
out.
you out. No.
And it has nothing to do with that. This is my life. This has been my experience. And I'm a first level believer of this. I can't speak for my children because they're not willing to talk. And I just suspect. And the other reason for my older daughter is because I've been able to read her mind more. I can read it through. Her eyes are like a ticker tape to me. But that doesn't mean she's had as much as I've had.
Yeah.
And they won't, neither one will get a DNA. And I think they're concerned. They don't want to know.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because the reason I told them was to make them aware and give them knowledge.
Yeah.
But they have to be willing to go. I can't force them.
Now, go ahead. Now, do you think that with your experience that it's been so positive is because you've been there so many times, you've been, since you were 3, like you said, if it's something you've grown up with, you're comfortable with it, you know that, oh, this is just
Part of my life.
this is just what happens. So these people that are going only once or going twice even when they're older, I mean, that could put a lot of fear. That could put just
Well, if I
in
have a chance
itself.
to talk with them, I can get rid of that fear.
Yeah.
And I know I can because I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
And I said, are you still as uncomfortable or fearful as you were now that you have a better understanding? And they said, no, it's all
Yeah.
gone
Yeah.
because you helped explain it to me.
Exactly.
The other reason is I also expressed in a more casual way that I feel it was all positive is I'm one of them. They're not going to hurt their
Yeah.
own,
Exactly.
which makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't look to hurt other people. I don't know if that's one of the reasons, but I throw that in because it's a sensible thought in my mind that if I'm one of them, they don't want to hurt me.
Yeah.
They may have more need for me too sometime.
Exactly.
It's not likely anymore.
But even still, like you said, if there was that pain, it was minuscule and it wasn't very
Well, I
long.
never had anything.
Yeah, but for others,
For others, yeah.
it was just
If
that moment
if they've caused the pain to leave, they've not allowed me to remember it.
yeah,
I mean, it's easy to remember having a baby,
yeah,
but I don't remember them doing any work on me. But they did,
yeah.
because the proof is the pudding.
Yeah.
Is in the
Obviously.
pudding, in manner of speaking. I'm open to still any more questions, you know, if you have any more and they come up, and even afterwards if they come up.
Well, that's what
I want you to know
Yeah.
rather than to guess, so you're always welcome to
I'm
call me
sure,
back.
you know, in the next even hour,
Yeah.
after we're done here, I'm sure more questions will be.
Well, then you're
coming up,
welcome to
so-
call, you're welcome to ask, because that's my purpose. That's why I'm told,
Yeah.
is to educate. And I can only do it through people like you too.
Yeah.
I can't say, hey, you feel like talking to someone off the street? Hey, you want
Yeah.
to talk about ETs and aliens?
Yeah,
Yeah, my mind's kind of blown right
Yeah.
now.
Exactly.
Well, it's probably a lot more than you ever expected.
and I do have a silly question.
It's not silly. No questions is silly.
How tall are your beings when you're on the ship?
Well, I've shrunk a little. I'm
Yeah.
about 4'11". All my beings were probably on the shorter race
Okay.
than they were on the taller. They were never tall whites.
Yeah.
I have no relationship with tall whites at all. I'm very confident about that. They were approximately around 5 feet. Some of them,
Okay.
the one that I saw when I was in my bunk bed, some of them were probably about 3 or 4 feet, because
Okay.
I remember them. And those are probably more the average, about say 3 to 5, or
Yeah.
probably about 3 to 4 more than even
Okay.
5 feet, because they're not of a tall race anyway. I can tell you, thankfully, they're not reptilian.
Yeah.
That I can tell you. But yeah, I can still visualize them, and I'm always, the reason I'm always trying to validate is I want to make sure I'm not validating with what they look like because of something I saw in a photograph.
Exactly.
I don't want that to happen, so I'm always saying I recognize this
Yeah.
in me,
Yeah.
you know. And Arcturian, when I saw this, if you didn't see that already, that's what I remember seeing about myself, not this.
Yeah.
So that's how I felt. Not quite, but almost, because I'm not 100%. But I felt myself more with those features, certainly of that mindset, not anything else. And I think my friend hit it right on the spot, because she also was in communication with her family. And she had constantly asked, why is Annie this, why is that? And I think it made sense when even when she said it, it made sense to me. And I learned more about Arcturians, because they're the intellect of the universe, and if you Google it, you'll find that out. I had to do a lot of research before I said, hey, wait a minute, ask Google.
Yeah.
But at that point, I had always learned and read about the different races, and Arcturians were continuously talked about as the technologists, the scientists, and the medical people of the universe. They're the ones that everybody went to for information. So it felt really good. You know, I said, oh, thank goodness I'm not from a different kind of a planet where I have to protect myself type of thing.
Yeah.
It really felt good, and everything seemed to fit in place, because I knew more, understood more than I ever got educated, formal education. My education, again, was not formal, it was from ETs. So I constantly, as I said, I've said many times over, I have very good reason to always say thank you to them, no matter how small or how large it may be. I have them to thank for being what I am. There's nothing negative about it. And I don't care if they find organs in a different place or whatever, it doesn't bother me. And doesn't matter to me that I can't tell the whole world. If, you know, of course it may land up that way, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If they don't believe me, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's my life. I'm the only one that can tell it,
You only know what you know.
and I only know what I know. Anyway, gentlemen, I thank you for your courtesy.
Thank you for asking.
I thank you for the opportunity. If something else comes up again, more than happy to accommodate you if it needs to be for some reason.
Yes.
I just want to get the word out there. I really do. It's important that I do, and sooner rather than later.
If you like today's show, please be sure to leave a comment. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.